Well, I figure you can nitpick with the best of them. What did you see on Thursday night that you liked and didn't like?
Well, first off, to get a win against a quality opponent, I know obviously being an FCS team, but they're a good FCS team, good defense. They did a lot to try to stop our run game, particularly inside, and that was a big challenge for us. So I was glad to see some perimeter stuff get developed, get going. That was good to see. I thought we protected pretty well. We had a couple late, hurries or hits, things that happened kind of late on some run action stuff, but for the most part, I thought we protected well and really was pleased with some technique by those two tackles. I thought we played physical. There's obviously you can highlight a bunch of different plays. The one that stands out is Melvin's pull at the end. But that if you watch the film, he had 11 knockdowns in the game. Creasy had over 10 and a half. I think I had him 4. So there's guys playing physical, which was good to see. And I thought we were sloppy though with some of our fits. I thought we were sloppy with some of our steps at times. We fell off some combinations. Like there was a 2nd down and 1, and we. Or 2nd down 2, or whatever it was, and fell off the combination block on the backside 3. Well, we got it the next play, but that stuff like that we got to get cleaned up, right? And we had a couple of MEs up front that we got to get cleaned up. A lot of them are pretty correctable, right? They're kind of frustrating that they happen, but that's what's going to happen in your first game, right? The one false start was a false start. We can't do that, obviously, but we can do some things as a coaching staff to help them so they're not down there that long of a time. But we had the one hold. JC got called for a hold, and it was a technique. It was a step. He stepped poorly, and guy made a good move on the inside, and we got called. It is what it is there on that. But fairly clean for first game. But we're going to play. Get into the meat of our schedule. We got a ranked opponent coming in that beat us last year pretty handedly. So it's not a lot of time to sit and admire your work. You get back to work and get those things fixed right away, and that's kind of our focus.
From a layman's perspective, Bart, how much are you giving Josh Creasy this year? And, hey, get us out of this if you see something, or how much of that is he earned that responsibility?
Well, that's a great question. This is the first time since we've been here at Illinois that I've had a returning center, and so the trust there is really high. The expectation is high as well, but he's done a lot to earn that, right? He's a very smart player. He's a very gifted football player physically, but the preparation he takes. He came in last night. I don't know what time it was. It was late, and he goes, "Is there anything else I need to watch today?" Just things like that. He'd already gone through all the cut-ups I'd made him. He'd already gone through his own progression of kind of early week film, and so you trust him with quite a bit. It's on par with what we've given Doug, and my center at Wyoming was an engineering major. I give him a lot too, and there's a lot there, and that's kind of what he brings to the table is that experience, but also his knowledge, his awareness, his ability to understand conceptually what we're doing, but he also understands formations and how defenses are going to line, safety rotations, stuff like that. So he's a pro in that sense, and so we give him quite a bit.
I know the linemen always tell us we don't really care who's back there, meaning quarterback or running back, but is it an underplayed thing that Kreutz is back for a second year as a starter, Luke's back for a second year as a starter, and they have that connection?
I think any kind of a continuity like that's good, you know. But they're right. It doesn't matter who's back there. Our job is to protect who we're in charge of, right? There's a Secret Service element to it, right? Protect your charge, and whether it's the running backs, we got some talented backs, right? It doesn't matter who's back there. Quarterback, obviously Luke coming back for a second year, but when last year when John stepped in, it was the same deal. It was like he's our guy. So I think any of that continuity helps. The rhythm, the cadence, right? All that kind of stuff helps, and then everybody after that has to mimic that, right? So that's kind of the challenge. When you are in a situation where you replace a guy, he's got to mimic what the starter did, right? So just the comfortability there, I think, helps. Yeah.
Do you like when there's two backs out there and you can add cadence to your collection of blockers?
Who doesn't like number 3 back there, I think just the weapons we have in that backfield allow us to do some different formations and some personnel sets. And, he can run the ball, but he can hit people too and be a lead blocker. So, I was pleased with us all.
Is there anything, I don't say anything, but is there a lot that from the Kansas last year that you have to throw away because your line is kind of different, like drastically different, especially at the tackle spots and, what you're doing at guard?
Well, I don't know if you ever throw it away. I certainly think you watch how Kansas developed as a team too, and how they got better throughout the year. They played some great opponents in Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas State, and and then obviously you watch them, and they've changed a little bit defensively, right? Their personnel, they've got a couple guys leave and bring some guys in, and so I think they have 75% or 78% of their production back, or some whatever statistic that is. But so there's a lot of returning guys there, but there's going to be some nuances that they're going to take too. But I think you watch that game, I think you see what we're deficient at, but at the same time, you prepare like you're preparing for any opponent or new opponent. You got to watch this year and last year and go from there and know what they do, and obviously we got to get better at what we do, right? That's the biggest thing, is correct some of the mistakes that we made that allowed what happened last year to happen.
You might have already been asked this, I'm sorry, but what did you make of what you guys did against Eastern on Thursday?
Well, I thought it was a good start. I thought we developed the perimeter run game pretty well, got that going. Eastern, a lot of credit to Eastern. They did a lot of movement and interior stuff to take away our inside zone, which that's fine, and we got to be able to counter that, right? And I thought we did that fairly well. I was pleased with what we protected. For the most part, we played fairly clean. We had 2 penalties. Obviously, we can get those cleaned up, but a little sloppy on some technique stuff, especially on the backside. A couple, second short, we missed a combination block and stuff like things like that. We need to get cleaned up. Game 1 stuff, but for the most part, I was pleased with the win. Pleased we got it, but there's a lot to clean up.
Melvin's kind of been the talk of the last couple of days, just with some of the way he hit on some of those plays. And what you see from him in his first extended action? How does that physicality trickle around your game?
I was pleased with the physicality. I had him for 11 knockdowns. Josh had 10 and a half. That was the good point, is the physicality. He was locked in on the sideline. He was smart player, aware football player. He made some corrections throughout the game. Didn't get a penalty, which was good. I'm sure there were times where he wanted to go, take off a few heads, but composure was I was pleased with his composure. A little bit sloppy in some of the technique, and we got to clean that up, because we start playing teams in obviously this week, and then teams in our conference. We're not going to get away with some of that stuff. So got to clean some things up with him, but a good starting point and a lot to grow from.
Do you get concerned about that? Because Coach B talked about, as it ratchets up in terms of opponent and big game and all those things, Melvin will ratchet up as well. And do you have to monitor that on not his physicality, but just going over the line in terms of, getting too intense and then not worrying about technique kind of thing?
Well, I think for all 5, you need to worry about them playing poised, right? And disciplined in a big game, and that's what a champion does. That's what a pro does. Is he rises to the occasion and doesn't let that affect his muscle memory. Doesn't affect the things that you're training for on months and months and months on end. You're playing for those moments. This is the Big Ten Conference, and we've been in big games here before, and the expectation is for them to rise to the occasion, and in the next year or the year after, or whenever they get an opportunity, if they want to go to the next level, they're going to have to do that too. Every game at this level is a big game, and so I worry about all 5 of them, but that's also why we train them, right? Is to have that discipline and have that poise in critical moments, and that's why we put them through what we do in camp. That's why we put them through those hard situations. That's why I'm tough on them. That's why we yell and scream and ratchet up the intensity of practice, and that's why we do goal line, and that's why we do everything else, and so that when that moment comes, they're prepared, and they're going to see those moments throughout the course of the year and then years forward. So I expect him to ratchet it up, but just like I do all the other 5, but I also expect them to play our brand of football: tough, smart, and dependable. And that dependable one is maybe the most important, in those situations.
You guys brought out like a barge light formation, I guess, with Brandon Henderson. What do you like about that look, and just how close is Brandon right now?
He's really close. Finding ways to get him on the field, and that was something we wanted to do. We felt like that gave us the advantageous look to that defense, right, when we did that, and so that was the main factor behind it. And then of course he's built up our trust, and we've worked him at every position. So he's really shown us, especially in the last 3 weeks of fall camp. The last 3 weeks, he's shown a lot of development, a lot of growth, a lot of maturity, and he earned that.
What's that say about him? Like, he's a sophomore, so usually you don't think of sophomore O-linemen in the Big Ten, but he certainly would feel your trust and feel how his game's developing, but to maybe understand the patience, I guess, that comes with having those other guys. Yeah,
that's a fair statement. The patience, it shows that I think he is maturing, he had success as a freshman, right? And then, that's hard for a freshman, especially from a great program like East St. Louis, right? He kind of probably expected to play early. And then got a chance to kind of dip his toe in there a little bit, but then in the spring, found himself in a position battle, right? Found himself in a position battle in the fall, and had to be versatile to try to find a way on the field. And I think what he's shown is the maturity to overcome some adversity, right? When maybe he didn't win that out in the spring, but then he came back in the summer and had a good summer, had a good fall camp, right? And so I think you're starting to see a very talented young man grow up and become a well-rounded player that's pushing and ready for his chance.
Just out of curiosity, with a very large crowd expected and the new communication methods, is there anything you're talking to your guys about with noise factors and all that?
Well, hopefully we're home. I mean, we are at home, but hopefully our crowd knows when we're on offense.
Yeah.
And it's not a hostile environment for us when we're out there. But we got to lock in. We can't have a pre-snap. We had a pre-snap penalty last week. We can't do that. And so things like that we got to be sharp about and be disciplined about. And there's some new rules in college football with what they can and can't do defensively. But we'll be ready to perform and be disciplined in our approach, and that's where our focus has been.
I know it depends on what the defense is trying to take away sometimes. Like Eastern last week tried to take away your interior stuff, and so you got out on the perimeter. But is your 5 athleticism, kind of showing out at this point when you guys want to do stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially at a couple different positions this year, our ability to pull the tackles, our ability to pull some of our guards and on some of the counter stuff, and then obviously, Kreutz is an athletic, undersized but a very athletic center, and so he can do some of those things. I think it just helps. We're playing to the strengths of a unit that can maybe do that, and whereas in years past we were a little bit built differently. But yeah, I think just being a well-rounded offensive line, being able to do some things when somebody takes something away, you got to be able to counter it, right? And ideally we can execute whatever concept we put out there. So yeah, we just got to keep getting better at some of those things.
Would you